If you're watching this video, you probably contemplate topics of spirituality and meaning more than the average person. If you follow this narrow path, it's likely you'll enter into what's known as the dark night of the soul. This painful moment is essential and paramount into a person's path to a meaningful, grounding awakening. Across many cultures and ages, this story has been depicted and retold and can even be said to represent a fundamental narrative of human development. But the term the dark night of the soul actually originates in Catholicism. St. John of the Cross was a 16th century Spanish Carmelite priest who wrote the poem La Noche Oscura del Alma, or The Dark Night of the Soul. He was more of a mystic when it came to his practice of Christianity, which can be defined as having more to do with personal prayer, meditation, and contemplation rather than ritual traditions, scripture, and sacraments, or more institutionalized practices. So that has to do more with the inner than the outer, or the church. And obviously, among people of his time and among the Carmelite order, this sort of view was not widely accepted. So when St. John of the Cross went to make reforms to the Carmelite order, he was actually imprisoned. And during this imprisonment, St. John of the Cross actually compared himself to Jonah in the belly of the whale, which actually makes a lot of sense because this story of Jonah in the belly of the whale represents the darkest hour, sort of, in the hero's journey. So this darkest hour would be the point where, on this sort of circular arc, where someone has ventured far from their home, far from where they were, and so the idea of turning back to wherever they once were is now not an option. He can't return to, so St. John can't return to his place he had within the Carmelite order before. And so he feels that sense of abandonment from God almost. But then he has no light at the end of the tunnel to direct himself towards or any hope for the future. And so this is what it feels like to be in the belly of the whale, the darkest hour. And so this is sort of what the dark night of the soul felt like to him in this moment. So he wondered if God had given up on him, or worse, if he had given up on God, if it was his own failure. And so this left St. John into a void of complete unknowingness, unable to return to the nature of his past belief or his past connection to God, but without any sort of hope for the future, because he never imagined he would have been put in a situation like this. So whatever idea he had of God or of the church before, it's been completely blown out of the water given the situation and isolation that he was in. And so he was there for 9 months, scarcely fed. I think they fed him bread like 3 times a week, and that was his whole diet. And he was put in this 6 foot by 10 foot, completely dark cell. And while he was in this cell, he managed to write the poem La Noche Oscura del Alma, The Dark Night of the Soul. And this is where the term first comes from. Eventually, St. John did escape from prison. He actually climbed out of the window and hung himself down, or walked down with the sheets, which is a pretty crazy story. And he went on to reform the Carmelite order, and now he's a saint, right? So the story does have a happy ending, and it took that darkest hour, that dark night of the soul, as he puts it, to create the reforms that he needed to and to deepen his connection with the divine. So the dark night of the soul has, as a concept, has continued far beyond even Catholicism. And it's this point where it feels as if the rug has kind of been pulled out from under you. Whatever understanding you had of meaning or of your place in the world has no grounding whatsoever anymore. So whether it be as a result of the death of a person, or a transformative experience that you never thought you would go through, or some vast change in lifestyle or otherwise, a person can't see the world or their connection to some divine source in the same way that they once saw it or had seen it for the majority of their life. And so the kind of structural grounding which once gave meaning to a person's life has now been almost disintegrated. So the conception of how things worked does not work anymore. And a person is left feeling abandoned, deeply abandoned, almost abandoned by God in some conceptual sense, because the thing which fundamentally the world meant to them, the thing which gave things meaning, has been lost. And so we feel deeply alienated from the world. It's a very deep sense of alienation because the loss of meaning elicits sort of a loss of relationality of the ego or the self to the world around them without this deeper grounding. So the divinity of relationships, experiences, or life itself, or our purpose, the things that we choose to put ourselves into, kind of has the divinity sucked out of it. It's kind of lost on us. The light is not there. That's why it's the darkest, the dark night of the soul. It's the darkest hour because you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel in this moment. And so this is especially, this isn't something that happens necessarily with everyone. Not everybody goes through the dark night of the soul. It's like I said, it's people who are more on a path to wanting to know things, to wanting to pursue things, and to have that deep grounded connection. You're going to come across this thing which not everybody goes through. And some people can kind of move on with their lives through this sort of change and can be sort of distracted or find solace in kind of more traditional pursuits, whether it be money or it could be sports or just relationships or these other things that people get meaning out of. But some people need a deeper, more centralized source of meaning. And so this is why some people have to go through this painful time, and these normal pursuits will not cut it anymore. So when the divine is lost, the heart is sort of left starving, needing that nutrient, that connection. And so one feels a deep sense of abandonment, isolation, and this can lead to, obviously, depression, anxiety, and lots of mental problems within this moment. And it elicits to the person, tells them that they probably do need to make a change. And so when a person comes out the other side of this experience, they find a deeper grounding, a deeper sense of self and connection to the divine, which is more well established, stronger, and much, much deeper than any kind of original beliefs that they once had. And now I'm going to pull a quote from Carl Jung. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. So this pain, this darkest hour, this dark night of the soul, is necessary. This pain is necessary to achieve a kind of awakening, which leads to a different sort of understanding of the world than you ever had in the first place. So this subtraction of certain things or certain positions or status or a certain type of understanding, when this is lost, there's more freedom that's granted to the person. So the subtraction of these things that once grounded us gives us a deeper connection because the artificialness of those original connections is no longer there. And so you're more held deeper into that divine relationship than more physical relationships. So this results in a real, genuine awakening. And it's usually a certain type of awakening, especially within like a Jungian conception of it, where, like St. John of the Cross, it's a more sort of mystical understanding and the kind of grounding that you once had for your beliefs. It never quite fully returns. It's never really grounded in the same sort of way that it was before. And it's a more grounded in personal experience and a less worldly grounded. So it's not grounded in things or in collective ideas maybe as much, but more in personal understanding and contemplation. And so this genuine experience, which comes from within, then is much stronger because it cannot be shaken. Whatever broke a person down and led them into this dark night before, it can never happen again, because the person's experience of the divine is grounded in something that's much deeper. So if somebody watching this is going through the dark night of the soul, just remember that this pain is necessary for a deeper awakening. And whatever you're going through, this is part of the hero's journey. This is part of the journey back to the return. And the only way back, fundamentally, is through. And in doing so, you'll achieve an insight, an understanding, which cannot be counted, which cannot be reduced to any sort of worldly thing. This is a much deeper level of experience and understanding. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, comment your thoughts down below, and please hit that like button. Thank you.